Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everybody. Great to have you here today. Looking forward to going over this new minerals and metals test outline. I truly believe that this new way of presenting this to people for at-home lab testing is going to be the easiest way for you to finally figure out what is going on inside your body and being able to take better control of your health. So what I wanted to share with you is what the new lab test looks like, but specifically go over a case study of chronic-based stress where the person is beginning to feel now worn out, burnt out, overwhelmed, fatigued, brain fog, and poor recovery from exercise. Those are the exact symptoms that we were finding with this individual. What we've done is redact the actual patient or wellness client-based information and share with you what the actual lab looks like. So if you're not following along, you can actually watch the video at stephencabral.com/2707. That is today's show notes page. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much for being a part of that growing community. Love being able to bring you daily videos. So we're gonna go over right now. This is actually gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna show you the minerals covered as well as the heavy metals that could be elevated too. So again, this is a brand new outline. Easiest way to read this lab, you're going to look at red for being out of range, yellow for being low or potentially elevated, and optimal for being right in that sweet base spot. Okay, let's get started. So what I want to show for this individual is the calcium to magnesium ratio. So you see both of these are on the elevated end. However, calcium is more elevated than magnesium. Most likely, we weren't able to work with this person before they came to us, but they most likely had all four electrolytes very high at one point. That's called an acute alarm-based phase of stress. That is from like high job stress, breakup in a relationship, a health-based issue, a major change in your life, like a big, big stressor. But then over time, what happens is your body's ability to keep up begins to drop. And these two, sodium and potassium, are actually quite regulated by the adrenal glands. So if your stress hormones are not being produced to the same level as they were before, where your body was essentially holding on to sodium and excreting potassium over time, you're no longer even producing the same adrenal-based hormones, one of those being aldosterone, which helps with the retention of that sodium. So we get this big drop in sodium, potassium. Calcium and magnesium are typically the last to actually begin to drop. Just as you see, this is essentially as we move into phase 3, magnesium will then start to go lower and lower. You'll see it sometimes as optimal, but we know it's not optimal because calcium's still high and these are low. But eventually it will fall out of range. And calcium will be the very last one typically to drop. And then someone ends up with a 4 low. And a 4 low is true adrenal fatigue, burnout, just apathy. Like no real emotion can even be garnered or gathered because you are so wiped out, so exhausted. So we like to be able to catch people in this phase and range right here so we can actually help them, right? So we can help them lower stress levels through the de-stress protocol, diet, exercise, stress reduction, tox removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically backed supplements, and a success mindset, right? I talk about that in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect. That is how you do it. So we just teach people that. We teach them how to do that. Okay, So now we look at the additional minerals. We don't love to look at iron except in the blood, so we basically disregard that it actually should be low or out of range because the iron should not be ended up in the hair. That's to take this test, you take a couple snips of hair, you use the protein, the hair, which catches the minerals coming out, as well as metals, which they've been using now for years for FBI testing, drug testing, pregnancy-based research, and much more, etc. Okay, so now we see this other individual. If I just take a cursory look, the only one that's actually optimal is zinc. Copper's low, manganese is low, chromium is low, selenium is low, phosphorus is low. So this person, because most likely of a high level of stress, they've depleted a lot of their trace minerals. Copper, right, is needed for what? Hair, skin, nails, mitochondria, thyroid. Manganese, used for energy production in the body. Chromium, used for blood sugar balance. Selenium, used for thyroid, powerful antioxidant, detox factor. Phosphorus, used for nice, strong, healthy bones, teeth, hair, skin. Okay, so zinc is optimal. Why? Well, over the last few years, we've seen more and more people start to supplement with zinc. Very interesting, right? So zinc is optimal. Yet if they're not supplementing with any copper, excess zinc can actually drive down copper. It's typically why we use a product called balanced zinc, which contains a small amount of copper that doesn't allow it to be driven down, because then you lose, again, sometimes the body's ability to help with the immune system and get more grain of the hair, etc. Okay. And this summary on the right-hand side, for anybody that runs the lab, can actually share with you all of the different details of exactly what I'm taking you through. All right, minerals and metals test. This is the toxic metals part. If we look at the mercury, which is out of range here, and the aluminum, we can see that this person has 2 out of the 5 elevated toxic metals, which is not good, right? So we've got mercury that we never want to see elevated, and aluminum that we often see slightly elevated, but certainly we don't want to see to the top end of out of range. So this person, it could be affected with brain fog, autoimmune, skin rashes, gut-based issues, inflammatory-based disorders. So what we're going to do, of course, is definitely a heavy metal detox to begin to naturally remove these from the body. The additional minerals, we're typically just looking for these low in the optimal base range. And that's the overall summary of the test. We give you additional factors, just mineral ratios you can learn more about. We talk about oxidative status, and then we just share with you next steps and recommendations based on your individual lab. So to me, this is really at-home functional medicine testing at its best. You get to run these labs right from home. You understand what they mean, and you get a plan that's built for you. Hopefully this was helpful. If you ever have any questions, just let us know. And of course, you can find out more about this particular lab just by going to stevencabral.com/labs. And there you'll find the minerals and metals test. It's a simple lab that can be completed by anyone 3 years old and up. You're just going to take a small sample of hair. They're going to send it to the lab, turn it to an ash, and they'll actually look at the minerals and metals contained in it. It's been used now for well over 30 to 40 years. Amazing lab, especially an easy one to get started with. Hopefully this was helpful. All the lab data, the actual PDF sample lab, and much more will be available at stevencabral.com/2707. Take care. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stevencabral.com/ rain barrel.